And
Chris,
Chris.
you have the other Chris.
Yeah.
All right, I do not have the
Agenda handy?
meeting agenda in front of me, actually. Should have printed it, and I did not.
The one that Michael sent out?
So the first thing up was review of program adjacencies.
All right, we'll just turn it over to the team. I don't know who wants to take that, Phil, or...
Well, I put together a little slideshow.
Oh, all right, good.
And that includes that right up near the front of the show.
Perfect.
And you can just stop me whenever you want, or I can keep going.
Just an FYI, Dan should be here in about 15, 20 minutes.
Okay.
Need an okay to share my screen.
You got that, Michael?
Okay. Looks like it worked.
All right.
Let's see. Folks, see that okay?
Yep.
Yes.
So this is what I have in this slideshow, programming summary. Some of this stuff you've seen already. We just have updated a little bit. And we've got the adjacencies and the program diagram shown in there, and it's all pretty much up to date. And then we've got a zoning summary and a summary about the parking. Then we've got a preliminary site comparison matrix. And then we've got plan diagrams for the Walnut Street site and for Chestnut Street. So I'm going to jump
Can I
right
make a request that anybody who's not speaking put themselves on mute? Because we're hearing a lot of background noise. Mike, can you mute people?
So here's it's my little agenda here. It's really just to keep me on track. So you've seen this document before. We've been back and forth through this with Marie. You'll recall that when we first ran the numbers, we were coming up with something vastly different than what was in the total in the program. And we've worked with Marie in the library and the MBLC to kind of right size this. And we're looking at a building that's just under 20,500 square feet now, which is a lot better than 25,000 or something, whatever it came out to originally. And so then you've seen versions of this document before as well. This is a program diagram where we take everything that's in the program and all the furnishings and we put it to scale. So the size of the space matches the program and all the furniture matches the program. This is kind of a double check on where we're at, make sure that everything works. And then we color code it for ourselves. We try to keep the same colors kind of moving through the scheme so that when we show you the floor plans, they all kind of mean the same things. Yellow is typically children's, the green is typically adults, teens is in this kind of pale orange color. Staff spaces are pretty much in this beige. Meeting spaces are in purple. So we did an adjacency diagram just so that we can understand it. And I mean, as you can imagine, all the yellow spaces are children's, they want to be next to each other. The green spaces are all the adults collections, they want to be next to each other. And then there's a couple little things that are a little bit more of a floater, like local history is lots of times included in the adults collections, but it doesn't necessarily have to be immediately adjacent to the adult spaces. What's more important in lots of cases is that it's closer to where staff can kind of keep an eye on it. We would typically have a room like that lockable, and you could leave it open or you can lock it if you need to. Lots of times we like to do that classroom function basically, so that you have the ability to lock a room down if you need to, and then you can leave it open to pass in and out as you see necessary. Multi-purpose room and some of the other meeting spaces kind of clustered together, close to teens, close to computers, close to teens. Staff spaces kind of consolidated together. AV and browsing materials closer to circulation desks. That's what we kind of call your grab and go collection, things people are coming in to kind of pick up a hold book or something that they have on hold or browse around, kind of check out the newest bestseller, that kind of thing. And then we obviously use these, the program diagram and the adjacency diagrams for plan diagrams, and we've got some of those at the end of the show. If you want me to keep on trucking, or if you'd like me to pause and go back to your, I'm not quite sure what's next on your agenda.
Phil, sorry, my screen is very small because I'm at home. What is the light green? I don't remember.
The
Right,
pale
lower-
green is
yes.
group study and quiet study rooms.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think you should just continue through your presentation.
Okay. The zoning summary and the parking, we've showed you some of this stuff already, so I'm not going to belabor this, but we took a look at the two different sites and checked out the zoning to find out what the issues were so that we understood it when we began to develop it. They're in two different zones, your existing building and the new site. Even though they're not all that far apart, they are in different zoning. The existing building is in your business retail district, and the Chestnut Street is in residential neighborhood number 1. It's immediately adjacent to a kind of a commercial building that I think it's Verizon on the corner. So the setbacks, the requirements are a little different. One of the biggest, we touched on this before, is the parking requirement. There's an exception where the library is located, that no parking needs to be provided on site. In this particular kind of small area of the town. But when it comes to the Chestnut Street site, don't have anything in the zoning bylaw. We talked about this again before, which says specifically about libraries. There's something close, which is the educational purpose, and that comes out to about 70 spaces when we run the number that's based on the number of occupants in the building. The Board of Library Commissioners has their own regulation, 605 Code of Massachusetts regulations, and they call out basically 1 space per 400 gross square feet of the building, with a couple of little details. And when you run those numbers, you take the square footage, comes straight out of the program. You get 52 spaces when you divide that out with 400. For employees plus 3 accessible spaces, and that comes out to 59. So that's what the Board of Library Commissioners would recommend as a minimum, according to their regulations. We talked about this briefly last time, and we looked at it. Obviously, we didn't do anything on the existing site. Once you put the building on there, it really doesn't fit, and we can touch on that a little bit more. But we also looked at the Chestnut Street site for parking, and we tried it there. We actually tried it. You can see that we've basically, when you put a 3-story addition on there, which is what we need to get everything on there, onto this site, there really just isn't any room on the site for parking. We need to do some regrading here in order to get folks in order to meet the handicap code. This existing stair will probably remain, but it'll probably end up being an exit only. The access code basically calls out for all primary entrances to buildings to be accessible, and the definition of a primary entrance is all entrances according to the code. So it's a little bit misleading, but that would end up having to be an exit. We've tried 2 different ways of laying out this building. The second one here, the idea is to break the building down. We can get into that a little bit more, so that it isn't such a big chunk on site. And also because we're using up so much of the site, you don't really have any outdoor space. And so one of the things we were looking at is breaking the scale of the building down and then maybe using some of these lower sections as a terrace or a balcony. So you get some outdoor space for the library on a very limited site. We can get into that a little bit more. But this is the Chestnut Street site. This is 59 spaces, which is in accordance with the Board of Library Commissioners. And what we talked about last time is kind of a minimum. If we assume a 2-story building here, and we got some grading information, there's about 20 feet of grade. It rises up pretty evenly across the site from the front to the back, about 20 feet. So we get a fair amount of grade on the site that we need to deal with. And so a 2-story building would actually tuck into the side of the hill, essentially, is what we'd be looking at. And so you could come into the lower story from the street, and you can come into the upper story from the rear. It's kind of what we're looking at. Got a site section that I'm going to show you. But this shows 59 spaces and how you can fit the majority of the parking behind the building. And then we also took a look at what it would be if we needed to comply with the more strict interpretation of the zoning bylaw. So if you needed to squeeze 70 spaces on there, we could do it. The lot coverage requirement, as you know, is just for buildings, not for paving. There'd be a fair amount of paving on this site. I'm not quite sure you need this many spaces, and so we'd be recommending 59. It's going to be easier to manage, and then there's room for growth. In other words, if you decided that you needed additional parking in 10 to 20 years from now, you could certainly fill in some of these spaces and create some more parking if you needed to. So we've kind of, based on the way this is laid out, to kind of spread the parking out a little bit and get you some spaces where we could do trees and things like that, would give you the opportunity to fill it in at a later date. The grading would pretty much be all there. So based on what we've learned, we're starting to put together a preliminary site comparison matrix. Now, I think as this thing moves along, we'll end up with more and more kind of criteria to look at, but we thought it was important to kind of touch on where we are right now, just kind of comparing the two sites. And so we compared them in terms of the topography, the parking spaces, the number of stories required, the building size, and then how they work for program adjacencies. And we can get into the details of the program adjacencies when we show you the floor plan diagrams we have. But both sites are sloping. There's a fair amount of slope on both of them. Both are going to require some excavation and regrading in order to get things to work. And both of them are going to require that a portion of the lowest story is at least partially underground. So there'll be some cases where we could do high windows in some areas. We might be able to do areaway windows, or we even looked at an option where we were looking at some skylights to bring light down into the lower level. And I'll touch on that when we get into those. But it is one of those things that I think we're going to have to deal with. We looked at a one-story building on that site. It would take a lot more regrading in order to be able to do it at Chestnut Street. It's going to be a lot harder to get the 59 spaces, never mind 70, if we try to do a one-story building there. We basically can't fit a two-story addition on Walnut Street and get everything to work the way we need it to. We need 3 stories in order to get an elevator and an exit stair up to the upper floor in any case. So there's really no other way other than 3 stories on the existing site. 2 stories works pretty good, and you're at a size where a 2-story building pretty much makes sense. I wouldn't really recommend a 2-story building as an option until you get to be over 20,000 square feet or so, just because 2 stairs and an elevator chews up a fair amount of square footage. One of the interesting things of having a sloped site, however, is that we're going to have entrances at both floors, and so we probably won't need 2 stairs in order to get the thing to work. We can provide exit out to grade in most cases, and that'll save us a fair amount of square footage. The building size at Walnut Street is larger than is required in the program. There's more non-usable space. We just can't get things to fit as well as we would like. We're ending up taking rooms that may be a little bit smaller and putting them into existing spaces that are a little bit larger, because where there isn't room where we can kind of squeeze 2 smaller ones in there. It's just not as efficient dealing with the existing spaces inside the building. And when we first started, we were trying to preserve as much of the kind of smaller walls inside the building as we could. We basically had to give up on that and basically clear out everything that isn't structural and holding the building up in order to get things to fit. And still, I'll touch on the square footages on the schemes that we looked at, but the building is larger by a fair amount, a couple thousand square feet in order to get everything to fit. Chestnut Street, we can get it to work at the program size. The program adjacencies at the existing site, there's some compromises. Not everything, not all the adjacencies that we wanted and that show on that adjacency diagram and that we've talked about with Marie and her staff really work. There's some things have to give. We need to get things to fit into the existing building, and we need to kind of break them up over 3 different floors, and it's harder to do. The program adjacencies, for the most part, are achievable at the existing site, and we've got a couple of examples of that. So as I said, this will probably grow as we come up with additional criteria to kind of test them against, but this is where we're at this point. We've got some plan diagrams for Walnut Street. There's two schemes that we have. They're both 3-story. This first one is pretty much a straight 3-story building with a regraded entrance that comes into the new addition, and it also takes the grading down so that we can eliminate that stairway that, out of that space at the basement of the existing building. So you'd be able to walk right out onto grade into this entry plaza from the lower level here as well. I'll point that out on the plan. So we did a quick section just to give you an idea. We're scooping out some of the soil there, and you can see there's the existing soil line beyond with a retaining wall, and then it grades up to the back. You can see we're pretty close to the mid-level floor line here. So getting windows in here would be a little tricky when we consider the steel framing and all the ductwork and everything has to go in there. It's going to be hard to get windows into that space without doing something like an areaway or something, which we actually showed in one of the schemes. And then we're just lining up what your existing floor levels. One of the tricks there is that your existing floor-to-floor level between the basement floor, what we're calling level 0 and level 1, is only 11 feet. It's not a whole lot of space in there. So that's going to be a trick as well to get the mechanical and electrical systems around. Sprinklers and all the other stuff that we need in there. This summary in terms of what we're doing for lot coverage and so forth fits with the zoning bylaw. The zoning bylaw says you can do 80% lot coverage in this zone. We're at 38. We're basically chewing up a fair amount of the site with the building. The gross square footage on this one is pretty tight because the building isn't spread out the way it is in the next scheme I'm going to show you as much. But there's basically 3 floors. You can see this gray area. We're trying to show you where portions of the building are kind of buried, so that the window opportunities here are limited at the lower level on a fair amount of this floor. At this entrance level, basically scooping out the soil here at the front of the building out to Church Street. Walnut Street is along the front. There's your existing lower level. This room where we did our interview, this large room down on the lower floor has a little stairway that gets you up to a doorway that takes you outside. We'd be able to remove that stairway and get you directly outside from this area. So they'd be able to do things like take deliveries directly into the workroom. We've cleaned out basically all the floors, the walls in the center of the room here in the center space. They took out the toilets and stuff like that. And the idea here is to take the windows out along the bottom, cut those down into openings and put the circulation desk in there. So the circulation desk is close to the workroom. They're backed up by storage. One of these could actually be your library of things storage, potentially, mechanical space. And then this third of the building on this side over here is unexcavated. So that's below grade. This floor basically has new entrance, night lobby space. You basically just close these inner doors and you have access to the meeting room in the evening, get to see the toilets, storage rooms, and you can get into the kitchen. During the day, you'd come right into this lobby area. The desk is kind of looking out over this space. There's a book drop in here where people can return materials after hours. And it's close to the desk for things to get picked up and brought back into the workroom. And then on this floor, we also have in the lobby space, we have our browsing and AV and some periodicals. And we're actually showing a small areaway here with a skylight over it to bring some natural light down into this space. We also have the Friends room in here so that if there's a book sale or something happening, folks can go from the lobby directly into this space. And we've got an elevator and a machine room and a stairway, which takes you up to the next floor. This floor, basically the main floor of the existing library with the stair coming in here. There's your main floor. We've basically given this all over to fiction, nonfiction, adult collections. We've needed to create an additional desk here. We've actually got 2 positions. This one I imagine might be manned by a volunteer or something like that if this area started to get very active, because there's just no good way to see into these spaces from this staff position and still be able to see up into the new portion of the building. Got a big chunk of the building here at the rear for the teens. They've got their own space. It's kind of glassed off with the door so you can still see in there. And if they get rowdy, you can shut the door and keep the sound down. We got a couple of toilets here. There's some exterior storage for the book bike that can go directly out on the grade here, stair and elevator. The existing stair here is really just a second means of egress. And then we've got some quiet study spaces, group study spaces, kind of tucked into the corners of this existing building here. Nonfiction, fiction, reading spaces, computer spaces near the desk. And when you get upstairs, it's kind of a mix, mostly children's. Children's, for the most part, sits out all their materials, the book stacks, the younger and older kids, study spaces, a nursing space, a family toilet, stairs and elevator kind of come right up into the middle of this space. Children's desk, their workroom is tucked into the existing building. We've taken advantage of part of those small spaces in the existing building for the program room and the associated storage. And then we've also got the maker space up here, which is a little bit of a break from the adjacency diagram to have this out on its own here. Staff break room is up here. They can pretty much go anywhere. The director is up here and the local history. Again, these are kind of destination spaces. So it's not the end of the world. You could get to them by coming up these stairs. But if you needed to take the elevator, you'd be coming up the elevator and walking through the children's department in order to get to some of these spaces, which isn't ideal. The NBLC pointed that out to us as well. They're pretty savvy when it comes to stuff like that. So this one I'm calling option 1.2. So we've gone through this one a couple of times and try to find some. Now this one is one that we took basically the 3-story building and we tried to break it down a little bit. And you can see it a little bit in this diagrammatic section. We try to create the opportunities here where you might be able to create a balcony or a roof deck. They don't all need to be roof decks certainly, but there is an opportunity to at least do that in one space if we wanted to create an outdoor place where people could go and read on site. And one of the benefits here is that to access this, you do it through the building, and so you still have security for your materials because people have to come back through the building with the things they may take out there to read or look at. So this takes up a little bit more of the site. The lot coverage is at 44, still well under the zoning requirement, but this building is a little bit more spread out. But one of the other things that it helps us with is in the diagram, because we were able to work better on the adjacency diagram with a little bit more room down below in the lower floors and a little bit less room actually on the upper floor. So the multipurpose room actually sticks out a little bit here into the lawn towards Church Street. We've accessed directly from the outside if we need it. Nighttime entrance, you basically could secure the door here and folks could come into the multipurpose room, close down this hallway at night, and you could use the toilets and the storage in the kitchen. The rest of the library is secure. Circ desk in this case is out in the new addition, backed up by the staff workroom and the friends room. Stairs and an elevator are in a similar place. Browsing and AV collection is down here, again with a book drop. And then we're using that existing space at the lower level for your maker space, which brings it back down kind of in a better spot overall for the library. Storage and server is in here, and mechanical space unexcavated as well. We've got a couple of the group study rooms down here. Again, group study and quiet study are kind of destination spaces, but if all things being equal, probably better if these spaces were up on the mid-level with the rest of the adults materials and so forth here. We did pull the director here off of the 3rd floor, got her down onto this floor, so she can provide backup to the folks working on this floor, and is a little bit more accessible to the public, which is nice. Local history is also pulled down here. The staff break room is pulled down here. We still have the book bike access to the exterior. The teens is on this floor as well. We're doing some similar things with the fiction collection and some reading spaces in the existing building. One of the group study rooms is tucked into the corner here. Again, another staff space kind of sitting in the center of the plan where they can keep an eye on things. Got a couple of toilets and some mechanical spaces at the back. When you get up to the upper floor in this one, you can see these white spaces are potential roofs of spaces that are down lower or potential patio or terrace space. But everything on this upper floor now is essentially children. So if you're going up the stairs or coming up the elevator to the 3rd floor, you don't have to walk through Children's to get to anything else. Children's has the penthouse suite here. Basically, they take up the whole floor. And so we've got a lot of the heavier book stacks out in the new addition, the lower books with the younger kids kind of tucked into some of these spaces. The program room is tucked in over on the side with storage. any of the place DVD and AV materials. We may be looking at cutting some windows in this existing wall so that we can increase the visibility out into this space. And we may want to think about a way to close off that stairway so that could only be used in emergencies, even if it's just a gate, so that you don't have kids disappearing down that stair when their parents turn their head for 30 seconds. The desk in this case in the workroom sits in the corner of the building, but you can get a pretty good view of what's going on up there. So those are the options at this point for Walnut Street. And then we've got some diagrams for Chestnut Street. So there is a section of Chestnut Street. You can see this dotted line is kind of the grade. And again, it raises up about 20 feet here. And so we'd like to reduce that grade a little bit so that we can get about 1 to 20 or so in slope, so that the sidewalks that run along the driveway could all meet the handicap code. And I think it seems like it's doable. And then we'd be able to get into the lower level directly from the street, or if you were parking here, you'd be able to get right into the front of the building. Or if you were parking at the rear, you'd be able to walk right into the upper level. So we think this driveway would probably just slope up, and then we'd flatten it out a little bit closer to the building here so that you can get into the upper level. And so we can look at a couple of schemes that do this, and they're both roughly the same. They both meet the program at 20,500 square feet roughly. And the lot coverage and the differences is pretty similar. We're at 18 and 19%, I think. One of them's got a little bit bigger of a lower floor footprint, but they're essentially the same. They sit pretty much in the same spot. This one we're calling option 3.2. We've been through a couple of different versions of this one, but basically it's a 2-story building. And again, we're showing the 59 spaces here, but you could use the 70 and it would work on this as well. Again, this dark gray, the idea is to try to show you which portions of the building are kind of partially below grade or completely below grade, and would have an impact on where we'd be able to bring the light in. Now, in this scheme, one of the things we've done is we've checked out sections here that were labeled skylight, and they've got dotted lines over them. The idea here is that on the upper floor, the face of the building would step in and out, and then we'd fill in that slot over the lower floor with a skylight. And so you would have light shining directly down into the lower level, even though you're below grade. And we can get the edge of the skylight up above grade so that we don't really have a problem. So you wouldn't be able to look out and get the view, but you'd certainly be able to see the sky, and there'd be a lot of natural light shining in. And that's the idea here. So in this scheme, we've actually created the entrance at the mid-level rather than at the lower level. Now, you can still get out this way to a patio or to a garden. We could create doors that walk directly out onto grade from the children's department, which is in yellow here. But in this case, one of the issues that we were having is stairs and elevator close to an entrance on the other end of the building means you need to cross the building to get to the elevator, depending on which door you come in. Coming in the side allows us to kind of come in at the split level. You get to the landing, and then you could go down a half a level to get to this floor, or up a half a level to get to the other floor. Step onto the elevator and do a half level in each direction. And the stairs and the elevator are pretty close to the door that comes in from the rear on the next floor. So in this case, children's is downstairs, the main circulation desk, the browsing collection is down here, the workroom's down here. Storage for the Library of Things is right behind the desk. The Friends book sale room is here. There's a couple of toilets, storage spaces, staff break room under a skylight, program room for the children's department is under a skylight. And then the workroom, part of the storage area, is under a skylight. These spaces, the office for the desk, the nursing, and the whole rest of the children's department, those are full height walls pretty much right down to grade. And so we'd be able to have full height windows for the majority of the children's department looking out towards the street. So if you come in this door and went up half a floor, or if you come in from the parking lot, you could come in this entrance. So if you're coming in the side and up a half a floor, you land in the center of the plan. If you come in from the rear entrance, you basically land in the center of the plan. We've got a desk right here. We've got a night lobby you close these doors down, you can use these purple spaces in the evening. So we have access to the meeting room, the kitchenette, and the storage spaces, and then the maker space. The bike storage room is on a convenient spot close to the door where you can get in and out if you need to get close to a vehicle to move some things in and out of it. That's all in the nighttime zone, along with the toilets on this floor and the janitor's closet. You can see here, these little notches in the building in these three places are the skylight down below. So there's opportunities for windows on all sides of the skylights, basically, on this floor, looking out over those spaces, if we need it. Come a little further into the building, reading rooms and computers, basically in the center of the plan here, the fiction, nonfiction collection on either side, group study and quiet study rooms on either side, and these little bump outs. Local history is kind of tucked off behind the desk. The director is here where the director can provide backup for folks working on this floor. Looking at the potential for a little canopy that if you were coming down to this entrance from the parking lot or leaving from this in inclement weather, you could do that. There's also the opportunity for a canopy over a lower patio area from the children's department, if that was something that worked out for us. So that's option 3.2. Option 4.1, it's got a very similar layout. Footprint is a little bit bigger on the first floor than I'm sorry, a little bit smaller on this floor than the other one because it doesn't have the skylights that are kind of chewing out some of the space from the upper floor. So the lot coverage is slightly smaller on this one. The floors are pretty much balanced on this one. So what we're doing is we're trying to take advantage of the spaces that need natural light for windows. And then we've taken the spaces that could probably do without natural light and put them around the back. Again, if we needed to bring some natural light in there, we could create area ways or some other ways to bring some light into those spaces. But essentially the layout of the site is pretty much the same with the opportunity for a little garden or a patio in the front. And in this one, basically we have an entrance at the lower level. You can walk in directly from the street or from the parking lot around the side of the building and then get into an entrance here. There's your exterior storage and bike storage. Come into the entry and you're basically in a main stair. There's an elevator there and you can get right upstairs if you're coming to visit the upper floor. Children's department is in yellow here. Children's desk, we just slid this over and moved the desk over so that they can kind of keep an eye on this lobby because there's no real staff position down on this lower level in this scheme other than the children's department. Staff break room and some toilets are down here. Multi-purpose room, if you're coming in after hours, basically children's would be locked down and you'd be able to use this multi-purpose room, the maker space, and then you'd have two exits, one with the stairway and one out the door. In children's, we've got a program room and storage, building storage, toilet, the child study and nursing area here. Going up to the upper floor, we have an entrance that comes in right from the rear from the parking lot. As soon as you come in, you're basically looking at the desk. There's an exit stair that goes down to the lower floor. Teens is on the right when you first come in. Right behind the desk is the staff workroom. Storage for the library of things is right next door. We've got the director's office, computers, and a computer study room that sits here in the center of the plan, close to the desk. Local history, study spaces, group study, toilets, another stair here at the end, which takes you back down to the lower entrance. And then we've got fiction, nonfiction, browsing and AV, and then seating in the center of the plan and along the windows. That's our show. Any questions or anything you want me to go back to?
I have a question. Sorry, I'm sure you've heard this question before. What are the issues with having, like, if you do the stairway halfway up, there is no going directly into the children's room. It sounds like you have to take a stair either up or down. You can't just zoom right in. Or an
So
elevator.
in this plan, do you mean?
The one where the stairs halfway up?
One with the split stair. Yeah, the first
Yes,
one.
yeah, right.
Okay, so if you're coming in at the mid-level, you come in at the landing basically, and there's a half a flight that goes down to the lower level, and then a half a flight you'd be looking at that would go to the upper level. So you, depending
So
on
there's
which way
no
you want.
direct entrance to the children's room.
From the exterior, no, you'd basically have to come down into the main lobby of the building. You walk down half a flight of stairs into the main lobby and then take a right into the children's department. We could certainly do a door directly to the outside. That would work especially well if children's was doing their own checkout and check-in. They could potentially have their own entrance. That's something that
Which
you
they
want.
do. I mean, they do certainly do that. There's no issue why they can't have, like I like the door in the front
Yeah,
rather
so
than on the side.
we need an egress door in here anyway. I think it's most likely, given the occupancy in here, we'll probably need a door. And you want to, I think, probably get outside anyway, but this could be an entrance if you wanted it to be, and there certainly wouldn't be any reason why, if folks wanted to walk directly into children's, you couldn't let them. That's really a policy decision. We're happy to make it so that you could do it either way.
So would the library be closed if we did the renovation side?
If we were doing a renovation, yes, there's really no good way to get that done. So you'd probably be looking at a temporary facility somewhere.
Or could you do the whole addition first, or would that might be difficult just for the because of the mechanicals and electrical?
If we weren't replacing all the systems in the building, I'd say you might be able to get away with it. My guess is, and we'll look at it both ways when we start looking at what the cost differences are, but my guess is that it will add a significant amount of time to the project to do it in stages. And instead of the library moving out once and then moving back in once, they'll have to move into the new space and then they'll have to move back in. You're not really going to save anything on moving. You're going to be dealing with the dust and the noise, but the bigger thing really is the amount of time. The additional time I think it takes, the general conditions may end up being more for the additional time than it would be to pay rent for a temporary space. That's when we've run that analysis in the past, that's the way it's come out. It really depends on what the rents might be, or if you had a space you could go. I mean, if the town owned a building somewhere that we could put the temporary library in that was accessible and had accessible toilets, for example, or we could put some toilets in there or something. We could run those numbers, but
Like an old fire station or something.
yeah, an old fire station.
Phasing generally doesn't do anything but increase the cost. I have a question, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Go ahead.
So Phil, on the existing facility, how are you doing mechanicals and sprinklers and all the fun stuff with the vaults?
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, I love the layout. I love the fact that I love the fact that you made the plans work. I'm already stressing out about those vaults.
I mean, I will tell you that until you all make the decision about which way you want to go, I have been avoiding it, thinking about it too much because it's a little scary. I agree with you, Dan. How exactly we're going to do it, I don't know. We're going to have to run mechanical systems in there, wiring for electrical systems, that's lighting, switching, smoke detection,
the vaults make that library.
Yeah, and trying to find ways that we can do it and hide it and keep it on the sidewalls or something like that is kind of what we're thinking about. My guess is that we'll end up trying to focus on doing something that runs along the walls here and trying to build something between the kind of the heads of the doors and where the vault starts, to kind of tuck some things into that. We'll probably be looking at systems that have. We probably will not be looking at air systems just because they're not as efficient as some of the other systems that we have available to us, and the ductwork's too big. So we'll be looking.
You are going to have to bring fresh air in.
We are going to have to bring fresh air, but if we're just looking at fresh air, the ducts will be smaller than they would be with an all air system. So it'll probably end up being something like VRF. And I know that if we start talking to the engineers about it, they'll be talking about wall mounted cartridges, which aren't the best things in the world to look at, but without a ceiling to put them in, it can be tricky. So we may be looking at, cabinet mounted units or a hybrid system and trying to run the piping under the floors. It's not an easy thing to do. It's going to have a cost associated with it as well. In order to keep that building beautiful, I'm going to have to break some eggs to make an omelet, but it's going to be hard to keep it,
How will you anticipate that with your rough cost estimates? I mean, because it's one of the big pieces, right? Is a cost associated with both sites, and to your point about how difficult that is, how will you get a handle on that?
Yeah. Well,
Like a chicken and egg, you gotta know what you're doing, so you gotta design it. But before you design it, you want to not spend that money until you know what you're paying for. So
right. And so that's where the artistic side of cost estimating comes in. It's a real exact science until it gets down to things like contingencies, and then it starts to get a little squishier. So we'll be talking to P3 and to our cost estimator about the complexities of the building and talking about what the kind of things that we're going to need to do and things that we're going to need to deal with. And they will work with their HVAC, fire protection, and electrical estimators specifically on what they think it's going to cost. And then we'll end up coming to an agreement on an allowance for things like that. I don't know, as well as I do that when you're doing a schematic design estimate, one of the things you're doing is really establishing the budget. We just need to make sure that there'd be enough in there to make sure that we are covered for what we're going to need to do. And then we need to live with that budget once we establish it.
I think just about everybody, especially on the permanent building committee, you've been through this route a few times. I mean, this site does not have a laydown area. To construct this next to the historical building is another problem. Dealing, with the pressures of the two foundations and so on and so forth. The vaults, we're going to have to take all of that into consideration as we're costing it out. And of course, balancing that is, we have a structure we don't have to, that's kind of free. It's an existing building, so we have a structure. So the cost in that building is going to be less than building it from scratch. So there is some balancing we're going to have to do with estimating to give an order of magnitude to help you make that decision on which site to go to. I mean, finances is going to be one of the pieces, no question about it, but it's not the only piece. Parking,
Yeah, parking is going to be important because
programming. I mean, there's a lot to it.
There's no cost for parking on this site as compared to the other site. But
right,
the bad side of it is there's no parking.
Yeah. I didn't even think of a laydown area. Really, what are we going to use? Central Park as a laydown area? I don't.
I mean, to be honest with you, this is a tough site.
We probably have to use the other site as a staging area.
I don't even know if that's practical. I think we might have to take sidewalks and things like that temporarily. I mean, we'll think about it, but I'm constructability wise, I'm looking at this thing and I'm already up at night.
But just things like concrete trucks and steel and stuff like that, you're going to end up taking the sidewalk and maybe a lane closure, and for replacing concrete.
I mean, it can be done. Anything can be done. It's just a question. Make sure we
right off the truck.
accurately. I want to make sure we accurately capture the cost without overinflating the cost. I don't want you to make a decision because we overinflated it. I want to make sure we nail the cost exact so you can make the right decision.
Can I ask another question,
I have a
Mr.
question.
Chair?
Sorry.
Go ahead, Kathleen. Was that you?
It was me.
Who was it, Marie? Go ahead.
Because somebody brought this up and I was thinking the they're talking about heating, HVAC, whatever. Can you have two different systems in the new and the old?
I'm, I mean, that's certainly possible. I don't know that there's an efficiency in that. Um,
Okay.
once we get to that point, I'm sure the engineers will come up with some ideas about the best ways to do it. Um, I'm, I
Kind
don't,
of an early question, sorry.
yeah, I don't know what they will suggest, Marie, to tell you the truth. I have some-
Chris, you had a question?
I did. It's for Marie and her team. I mean, obviously financial, as Dan had pointed out, is a piece, but it's not the only piece. So, and I'm not a librarian, so I have no idea. I'd love to see, Marie, what you and your team thought about the various programmatic aspects and what your thought around the parking and all that stuff is. I mean, because that, you know, all things.
Okay, I mean, all things being equal in my dream world, um, we the 3 stories as it is already problematic with getting coverage. So there's, Phil did a great job trying to put the desks where you can get the maximum amount of coverage, but with 3 stories, you do have an issue. So there's a circ desk here, but just the way the building is broken into rooms, and then you had this whole separate section that trying to get enough sort of eyes on people, not because we want to spy, but just because
Mhm.
we had to see what people are doing. And I do know that from past experience, everyone, who's ever had a new library, the data pretty much shows that your circulation and your attendance and everything will double. Now, already we have a parking issue, right? We have 6 spaces, um, and you lose those, then people, I have had people say, "Ugh, I'm not going because I couldn't find parking." Doesn't happen very often, to be honest, but people have said that. Saturday mornings, we have anything on Saturday morning, the lots are full of people going to church. Um, I do think people would love to have parking, and having the children's room be able to have their own entrance, I also think is um, a benefit. I think having there were a couple different iterations where like you can't have people go through the children's room to get to the adult room. That's just not right. And having the different floors where everything is ADA accessible. I don't not huge fan of the split floor entrance, but that's only one. But I also think it's super important to have staff spaces have light, natural light and windows. Um, I don't know in terms of what's doable. Of course, it's you have a space and you have the limits to design with your space, and or you have new and you can say, oh, the world's your oyster. But at the same time, it'd certainly be nice to be able to get what we need in the space provided and what people want. I mean, really the big thing people want, they're like, we want more study rooms. We want family restroom. I hear it over and over again. We want more parking. Um, so in terms of that, we want to be able to serve people in Clinton the way they want to be served. I guess is really what it comes down to. We want them.
Sounds like you're advocating for the freedom and flexibility of a new space.
I am. I'm trying not to, but yes.
Well,
Is there
but I
a
think
way to quantify that? I mean, I know when we tried to pick from different designs for the middle school or ad reno or whatever, we came up with certain criteria, right? Like how did it meet the program? How did it, what would be the disruption to students? Well, and then you kind of went through and you scored each one of the designs. Not necessarily ranking them, but sort of like a 1 through 4 or whatever. And then it was able to tally it up and you were able to kind of see like, oh, clearly, and cost was one of those too. Order of magnitude cost of like what was a big cost was a small cost. And I think that really helped make things clearer, right? So I think if some of those things you just pointed out there, I mean, if those are the things that are important, like what are those key things? Like uh, a children's room that's going to be, you know, safe and developmentally appropriate, or whatever you want to, however you want to phrase
Right.
that, right? Like accessibility, right? What are those key components that you're concerned about that you just mentioned? And then you look at these, whatever we just saw, 7 diagrams or whatever, and you just sort of say like, okay, under children's room, like these three get a one, and these three get a three, and this one gets a
Right.
four because it's on the first
I
floor.
also think something that we're kind of not talking about, which I think is super important to talk about, is the fact is if you don't have parking, that means you don't have accessible parking. You don't have, you know, you're gonna stick a a, a park a parking space on the street or not at all, because you know if you don't have parking, the regulation doesn't require you to have ADA accessible parking, which means that kind of leaves out a lot of people from going to the library. And I kind of feel that that is not right.
So
Then you add that to your scoring column. You
yeah,
put
I was just
Right.
gonna.
accessible parking or accessibility, including parking, right? And then like the renovation ones get a 0 or a one, and the a one-story building eating up a lot of the lot might only get a three, but a two-story building eating up part the other part that you could fit 60 or 70 spots might get a four, right? So I think if we quantify that, like I think it's the only way we're going to be able to do something
So
like
is
this.
this
Just looking.
something that the PBC would be willing to do as well? Like everyone is sort of like a rate, like an evaluator, the way that we will have when whatever design we choose is finally submitted. There's outside evaluators that are pretty much saying, how do you fit the program? Do you
I
have all
think
the elements?
it would
I
be,
think the PBC would be willing to also grade. You
Okay,
know, I think we should be in, grading,
thank
and
you.
we may not
Yes,
be an expert at a lot of the stuff that you're an expert at, but vice
Right.
versa,
that's
That's what I was going to
okay
say. Like I
because
know when
you
we
know
did
a
it
lot
for
of things
the
I don't know.
yeah.
So
when we did it for the school, like there's a lot of things that, there's a few categories that are going to be like in the PBC wheelhouse, but there's other ones that were definitely in more of like the education wheelhouse. And I think that
Right.
this is where this would be where, to me, like I don't I don't see the big deal of having to walk through a children's section to get to the adult section, right? Because in my
Well,
mind, children and adults don't go to the library at the same time. Like, but I know that that's probably not right, right? But like in my mind, like I feel like adults go during the day and children are in school, right?
Yeah.
So, but that's, whatever. So,
I don't I think you're establishing a metric to help the community decide, which is what you did in the PDP when you were going to do it through the school and your PSR. And I certainly think that Phil and I can put together a metric to score it. There's a multitude of things we can do to score this, uh, for sure. The question is who's gonna rank it. I think is important too, and I kind of like the idea of the PBC ranking what they know and the librarians ranking what they know, and kind of collaboratively coming up with a community scorecard to say why we went left or what we went right. But I also think that the one piece that we talked about as a group was having a public meeting with the public, because I think on this one there is an emotional attachment to the existing building, and I think we have to have that public meeting with the public to explain why the option of going new was even discussed. Because I think you're going to have some people that are just going to say, no, 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 it's the Bigelow, it's the Bigelow, it's the Bigelow.
but I think that's why those metrics are important. Like, I think by the time I know, and I'm not trying to compare everything to like the school, but when we went public with our school meetings with all the designs, we had those metrics available.
Mhm.
So people could see why we thought this was like a four or whatever, a four in this area and this one was a three in that area. And that idea, I think, helps because now someone who might be emotionally attached to the wants to be emotionally attached to the Bigelow, they look at now they look at a more of a metric and they realize like, wow, a new building is going to outperform this one in all these areas, including accessibility, including inconvenience in the town for construction, including moving costs, you know what I mean? Like all these
Yeah.
different
Well,
things.
it would be helpful to me, since you've gone through this, to see the metric you used for the school, to see if there's some commonality that we can use that the community is used to, because it's not going to be the same. It's not a school. It's a library. As we were just talking about sightlines, sightlines are huge for libraries because libraries are usually understaffed,
Yeah.
and when the economy gets slow, the library usually gets the whack first. So that's why sightlines are important, that they can see everything, and that's a metric. So right there, that's a metric. So I think between Phil and I, having done too many libraries, we should be able to come up with you know 20 important items.
I don't think you need 20. I think you need 5. You know what I mean? Like that's really, I mean,
Well, I mean, I honestly think I think you need to look at it really so that the average person can look at it and say, yeah, this isn't skewed. These guys really did look at it, and they looked at all these different items, and I think you're gonna all come to the same conclusion, whether it's Bigelow or whether it's new.
I would like to say that as a person who uses the library, there's no adult space in there. If more than two people are reading a newspaper, you can't go in. There's no place to sit down. There's no place to sit with a book. There's no place to sit with another individual. The meeting space is either used or not used. I think that your metric really needs to have a number of issues taken into consideration. It's not just, okay, children's library, adults, do you have to walk through this space? Do you have to walk through that space? You need to look at what's available and what's really not available right now so that we can,
but we don't
besides
care
the
about right
parking,
now, though.
besides the
You don't do the metric for
accessibility.
right now.
Well,
Yeah,
when you
You
because
do the
when
metric to the other designs to see which ones promote. You know what I mean? I mean, you can do one to right now if you want, just to try to justify it. But I think really what we're trying to compare is the different designs.
The metric for right now is we're doing the study to improve the library.
okay.
that's why we're doing the addition on the library, because we know it's cramped for space. That's why you get a big addition to add on to make those spaces work.
Right.
They, both places, regardless of which one we choose, have to have all of the space that the library deemed required, is required. So there's spaces and sizes to all of that. You're going to get better adjacencies at the new building, obviously, because the old building has constraints. But the size of the spaces is going to be basically the same for the two different options.
Right. So it'll have an adult space, right? So, but one of the metrics could be adjacencies, right? Do the spaces flow well because of the plan, right? And then you might say that this site or that site has better adjacencies, right? So,
Safety and supervision, accessibility, right? Like,
yeah, I think really it's a metric that Phil and Dan and probably Marie and her team kind of curate, and then you can open that up to the larger committee. Steve or Chris, one of the things we did after we kind of scored it and had what we thought were decent proposals when we had a public meeting, we did whiteboards or poster boards with the various plans, and everybody who attended the meeting took a sticker and put it on after.
Yeah.
So you had a instant public feedback, so to speak, after the presentation.
I think that was one of those things that we would really like to do on September 16th with the, boards, plural. Mike said that he would reach out to the.
But I think at that time they had our
those
scorecards.
boards, and I have one in my room. I have the one that won still in my office.
Nice.
They had the scores on them for
Right.
each one. So
Exactly.
you can see that, like, we felt that, this design was a 4 in meeting programming and a 4 in minimizing disruptions and a 4,
Right.
and then when you went to the next one and when you're looking at it, you might see the different scores. So that way, when people
Oh, I
were kind
like
of
that.
voting, there was a little bit of guidance of sort of like what was
Mhm.
how did we rate the building?
Uh,
Now, people can make their own
Steve,
decisions, but
I'm sorry, Steve, how many designs were there that were at that meeting?
Hmm. Too
six,
many.
Six,
maybe
maybe. Yeah.
five.
That many? Okay. So were they
But it was
all
like
new?
maybe two. I mean, it was like two or three. It was like two or three renos and two or three ad renos and like two or three new ones.
And
And
one
they were all
existing.
doubled because one was a configuration of like, is it 4 through 6 or is it
Right.
or sorry, 4 through 8 or 5 through 8, right? So it was kind of, so there was a lot. They could vote on each one and then they could vote on the configuration for each one.
Yeah, MSBA feasibility is a little bit different. Plus, you have up to 24 months to do it.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I'm not saying it's
in
going to be the
fairness,
same thing, but
but
it's yeah.
I do think we can get to where you want to go, and I think the OPM and the architect should put their heads together and come up with a matrix sample that we can score as a group.
Yeah, can you send that to me, Steve, your metric from the other one, just so we can have sort of a see what you graded on?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, just a photograph or something would be fine. Great.
So, and that I guess would be the September 16th meeting, and then I don't know whatever's happening.
Well, I think
Oh,
on the
hey, so
September 16th meeting, we really need to listen to the public.
yeah,
Um,
that's what I mean. We'll have the Old Home Day. I know Phil will be there at Old Home Day with whatever. Um,
Bells on.
and Bells. Oh, all right. That's what it was. Bells on. Okay. So whatever you have there that the public will be able to see. And there are, for those of you on the permanent building committee who have not been to the library lately, I'm doing tours. I will happily do a private tour like I did for Steve, but I have public tours. You want to come and see everything. Just, just putting that out there.
I was there last weekend.
Did you get a full tour, Chris?
No, I didn't. I just had my grandkids with me. So we're very familiar with the children's area. And I
Okay, well, that's good.
apologize now for the damage one of them did for taking one of the,
Did you ever see Goodwill Hunting? And he tries to ask him the question about like, but do you know what it smells like in the 16 chapel in the 16?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like you don't really appreciate the library until you know what it smells like down in that boiler room and the staff.
Chris, when you
No,
were
I
in there,
put
as
it
long as
that
you weren't
way.
afraid of those vaults, because those vaults give me those vaults scare me.
Anyway,
All right. What else do we got on the agenda? Anything?
um, discussion of outreach,
what's
new
test,
versus addition.
what site test fits?
Oh, you kind of went through that with the site plan showing the floor
Mhm.
plate of the building and the parking.
And then so, because Chris, you don't have this in front of you, right?
No, I don't.
So we got next project milestones, I guess.
So marketing, date wise, Marie, there's so many dates flying around. So
Okay, so would you like me to share them with you,
I would
Dan, and
appreciate it if
everybody
you'd
else?
share them and make me look good.
Okay, so the Old Home Day, Phil is going to be with some posters or pictures of some sort at the Friends of the Library booth, answering questions, and he said to do a presentation if I can get a decent mic from CATV, maybe we can do that. And then I have basically open house tours that I'm bringing everyone through the secret back area and talking about the building and the challenges. And I'll put those in the chat. And if you want to write them down, otherwise they're on our calendar. But I think that just the September 16th date is a really important date, as Dan has mentioned. That is the public open forum comment space with
With the selectmen, right?
FinCom, Select Board, trustees, PPC, yeah, all those people. Um,
And we're going to the senior center for a presentation.
oh, I forgot we are going to the senior center for a presentation on September 3rd. I'm hoping Phil will be totally on top of that one, and I'm just, there for moral support.
Good.
And I don't know if we need to meet before then, but that's,
So
Yeah.
Phil and I have our homework to do.
So, I guess the next thing is the next meeting dates, right?
So it'd probably be that September 16th at the full multi-board meeting. That'll be our board.
Do you want to meet prior to score the two, or do you want to sit back and
Could
listen?
do that. I don't know. We could do that too.
Chris, I think we're going to get a little bit double booked coming up because I
I
think
know, because we got
they
a
were
school.
trying they were trying to get the school one on the 16th, I think, for the Bills. But we might be able to, maybe if we have to, we do like a divide and conquer. Maybe if we want to do one on like the 9th to do some library scoring, and then like at one group is at 7 and the other group joins at 7:30 or 7:4 or whatever, 6:30, and one joins at 7, and we talk about scoring and we talk about building updates, and then maybe on that 16th, one of the orders of business we could do is just to approve the bills, because I know that for the school project, because I know part of it was to try to give people more time to digest that report.
Yeah, it'd have to be in person because that's going to be, where is that meeting going to be? The selectman's office?
Probably, yeah.
probably the town, our
Town
chamber.
hall. So yeah,
Yes.
town hall,
Yeah.
definitely town hall.
But we could have a little side meeting. We're going to be at an open meeting, so we could have a side meeting to approve bills. It's just going to be hard to,
the other option is we just keep it separate and we tell Trip and those guys
Well,
to move it to like a Wednesday. You know what I
we can
mean?
move it to a Wednesday. Yeah.
am I even blocked? Like, I don't even know if I'm here. So if we plan an open meeting for 7, can you do your bit at 6:30? I mean, they're all open meetings, I understand that. But if we do the public forum at 7, can you do your bills at 6:30? I mean, does that make sense? Or, I don't know. I don't want to, this is
Yeah.
the thing.
I mean,
I think we'd have to see
I don't
what
know
else
if
we
we
want
wanna
on
get-
that agenda.
we're going to have a whole team of people coming just to pay some bills. I mean,
Oh, that's right, because they would all have to come in person. I
yeah,
know.
we can do something
Yeah.
pretty quickly on a quick Zoom meeting and approve
Yeah.
the bills. And
Yeah.
I think the library one's set in stone. That's going to be set in stone. We'll work the middle school around that, whether it has to be a Wednesday or whatever.
Yeah.
We'll work around it.
Okay.
Um,
I'll send an email out, Chris, to like Trip and those guys to.
Yeah, tell them the
let know.
16th's no good. Ask them what they want to do. Do you have enough time to do it on the 9th, or do you want to do it on the 17th, or whatever? Yeah.
will
All
we
right.
have any budgetary feedback prior to our presentation on the 16th? I mean, we're scoring all this and we'll come up with a clear winner probably based on program, but everyone's going to ask how much is going to cost. So, if something is a winner, but not by much, but it's going to cost, in your mind's eye 3 times more, then it might not be a
Chris,
win.
Chris, that's a great question, and my concern is that the numbers you're going to get are for order of magnitude. They're not really going to be the numbers until
Right.
we can quantify.
What-
And I caution using numbers. I'd rather use $3 signs and $4 signs. This one's clearly more than the other one. Because when that first number comes out, that gets stuck in everyone's head.
Yeah, I agree.
And I don't want to overprice this library or underprice this library, because our reputation and your reputation as a committee has been to be on target, and we're not ready to put a number that is a number you can go to the bank with, because it's going to get in everyone's head. They said 14 million. Why is it 16? Or they said 16. Why is it 14? So I think we can with the feedback Phil's going to get from his engineers and with the matrix, get to that place where we know one's going to be more costly than the other. And we just need to present it that way.
All right. I have a few things that aren't on the agenda. we got our first invoice, which is fine. We approved that at our last meeting for Johnson Roberts, which is fine. But as a committee, a couple of things. One, the committee, right now we do the middle school ones. We have Annette does the e-signature, which works out good. But I don't have capabilities of doing that for the library myself. And I don't know if Steve, if that would be something Annette would, it'd be okay for her to do that, or if anyone else had suggestions, or really what's going to end up happening is I'll have to send the invoice in, and at least 3 other people are going to have to get to town hall to sign it to approve the warrant.
Who's in that?
That's just the building committee. This is just to the building committee only.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, okay.
And that's the school business manager, and she does a DocuSign
Okay.
schedule.
Yeah. Oh, Annette, you said. Who's Annette? Yeah, she's
Yeah, who's in that? I
cool.
if she's
When
a
you-
town employee and she's willing to do one, I mean, on
Well,
ours,
she works for the school, not for
you're
the
only going to have
library.
2 bills a month on this one.
When you send that to her, do you send it to her in a
I
warrant
send
format?
her the invoices and I say, please prepare an e-sign warrant, and I list
Okay.
every invoice and the amount of money on it, and then she prepares it and sends it out.
Like, is all she doing the DocuSign, or is she actually doing some other formatting?
All
too?
she's doing is the DocuSign. That's it. I do everything else.
Yeah, I think if you're sending it to her sort of like already prepped, and all she has to do is just make
All she got to do is put the e-sign together and get us to sign it. She sends me the signature page. I put everything together. My wife happens to be the person who pays the bills in town, so I
Yeah.
hand it to her in our kitchen, and that's it.
So, yeah, I think why don't we just try it for now? I'll talk to Annette, and I'll just let her know if it becomes too much to have her talk to me.
It's not, and maybe this won't work once we get to the point if we're building the building, then it might be a little bit
And they're
more. But
flying
right
and-
now,
yeah.
it's an invoice or 2 here and there. It's
Yeah.
really not a lot, but she'd have to do a separate one for this library.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that doesn't work. I might have another option, Chris, but we'll see if this works first.
Okay. All right, that's one thing. Now the second
Oh, we
thing
got a
is-
connection to like the town accountant or something too.
Yeah.
No,
maybe.
no, she's not doing that.
she's
Um,
not doing it. She'll
I
run
might have
around
to-
to get the
that-
signatures.
It might have to be someone in my office that's, will have to write it
Yeah,
out.
I mean, and that's already doing them, and she knows the format. It really makes
Yeah.
sense if she, I don't want to step on anyone's toes. She's works for the school, not for the library.
Yeah.
So, but if that works, Steve, that'd be great.
Yeah, let's just keep it for now, and then if it becomes a problem, I'll talk to her, and if it becomes a problem, I'll let you know.
All right, I'll talk to you within the next. I'll email you, separate, and just
Do-
make
do
sure
I,
everything's all set.
Just to confirm, do I get copies or at least an overview of the bills, because I need to submit that to this?
Well,
to this
that was my next question. Who's going to be submitting these bills for reimbursement to the library board?
I,
The library.
yeah, so we don't get reimbursement like you do in MSBA. So
How does that work?
they give you tranches of money, and you show them the bills that you spent it properly because they have copies of your contracts. You're only getting 100 out of the 250 that you have for this project. So it's not like MSBA where everything goes through ProPay. There's no ProPay at the MBLC. There's only 2 people for the whole state.
Yeah, but my question is more like, all right, I got to pay these invoices. Who
We
after I
should-
get them all
yeah.
together, who do I send them to that will process? Not the town's portion of it. We'll get you guys paid. I'll do that.
We need
get you
I
guys
need a copy of every bill on this job
Okay.
so that I can track every dime on this job, because we need to help Marie get her monthly report in. Marie has to show what's been spent
Oh,
and
she
show
does
the
the
warrants and
report.
show the warrants that they're on, but that's the end of it. It's just a schedule.
Okay.
Yeah, I
So
was
I'll
gonna say, I
send
don't-
that. I'll copy all of you, the team, not
Right.
the
Yep.
building committee. You don't need that, but I can get it to Dan Marie and
It gets a lot more complicated when we go to the next phase. It's kind of
Yeah,
simple
of course.
on this one. All right.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So I'll do that and keep you guys getting paid.
Thank you.
No worries. Any other business here?
Good on my end.
All right, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Real quick, Marie, I sent you an email with it was my presentation I made to like the Chamber of Commerce or something, but one of the
Okay, you
slides in
did-
there is the scoring matrix.
Oh, great. Okay, because I knew you sent that to
So
me
you can look
before.
at that, and I'll try when I get in my office tomorrow. Maybe I'll just take a picture of that.
Okay,
And please
but
forward that to Phil and I.
I will forward that to you
All right.
too.
Thank you, Steve.
No problem, and I'll make a
right,
motion to
thanks.
adjourn.
I'll second it.
Second by Chris Magliozzi. All right. Chris Magliozzi,
Yes.
Yeah.
Steve Meyer, Mike Moran,
Yes.
Mike Ward.
Yes,
Chair votes yes. All right, we'll see
Thank
see
you
you
all.
guys
thank you.
next month.
Thank you. Good night.
See you at Old Home Day.
Yeah.